Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to this early morning, middle of the night bonus upload. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help this channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all these things, they really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to this early morning, middle of the night bonus upload, shall we? This early morning, middle of the night bonus upload is going to be a compilation of Dogman, Bigfoot, Glitch in the Matrix, and Mothman experiences. Let's jump into it. Today's first encounter. On my way home during a college break, I saw something really odd. I had just gotten to 731 via 109, where it runs into Mount Gilead. It was around 2 in the morning, and I've got the high beams on scanning for deer. A couple of miles down from town, the trees thicken up, and there's a crossroads. As I'm coming up on it, doing about 45, I notice a set of eyes pretty high off the ground. Figuring it's a deer, I slow down and get ready to lay on the horn. As I get closer, though, it becomes clear that what I'm looking at is not a deer, but a very large black canine of some sort, standing broadside to me right in the middle of the crossroad. I don't think it was a dog, but I don't see how it could have been a wolf. It looked like a wolf, though. But we don't have wolves, especially not large ones like that in my state. My car at the time was a crappy little 89 Nissan Sentra 2-door with no ACs, and I had the windows down. I'm sure it would have been comical to be a fly on the wall watching me to try to keep my car on the road with my knees as I was trying to roll them both up, because this thing was at least tall enough to stick its head in my window without coming off the ground. I came to a complete stop just before the crossroad, and it just stood there looking at me. Looking intelligently at me. I think the moment only lasted 30 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Then it just turned and trotted off south down the road. I had to sit there and process what I had just seen for another minute or two before I could shift back into gear and get going. I don't roll the windows back down until I had several miles between me and it. Today's second encounter. I live near Mobile, Alabama, and I went to see some friends in Tuscaloosa. On my way back, I saw a white dog-like creature standing next to a deer in the middle of the highway. It was similar to the deer in stature, except a few inches taller. It had a sleek body with long legs that bent like a dog's. It had a mane and a tail and came down and seemed to get tangled and clumped at the bottom. It was as tall as my car, a Honda Civic. After doing a little research, I found out a similar described creature had been seen in the triangle between Jefferson, Morgan, and Ottawa counties. I was nowhere near that area, much more south, somewhere between Hale, Marengo, and Clark County. This thing was not a white Bigfoot, as some people have claimed. It also shares the name with an alien-like creature some people have seen in northern Alabama. We're looking for a dog-cat thing. Today's third encounter. I've been reading about sightings of man-like creatures all over the internet. Back in January of 2014, I was driving home from my workplace and witnessed an unexplained thing cross the roadway in front of me. I was at my workplace, a Toyota plant in Buffalo, West Virginia. I was on vacation, but needed to stop by and pick up my paycheck. It was close to 5 in the afternoon. I was driving home on Route 35, and then turned onto Hurricane Creek Road heading towards home. It was dark by that time. There was a wide turn about a quarter of a mile from the highway. As I drove through the turn, something on 2 legs walked out of the woods and onto the roadway. I hit the high beams, and when I did, this thing turned its head and bore its teeth, running into the opposite trees on 2 legs. I have no idea what this thing was, but the teeth were huge. It was about 6 or 7 feet tall. It had a snout like a bear, but the head looked like a man. Eyes, ears, and hair. The body had black hair all over it, and it was built like a stocky man, long legs with big flat feet, and arms with man hands. It shocked the hell out of me. When I got home, I told my wife, but didn't tell my daughter. I didn't want to scare her. I've been hunting all over this county all my life, but never seen or heard anything like this. I could only call it the Bear Man. Today's 4th encounter. Never seen clearly, but around 92 while hunting a swamp just before dark here in Louisiana, I was stalk hunting while wading through knee-deep water. I saw a movement through the water at some very thick hedgerow-like brush. At first, I thought it was ducks, so I snuck up to the edge of the brush for a clear shot. But when I got there, I could see movement through the thick brush, 6 feet over the water, and at the same time there were small wakes of water coming through the brush every time it moved. I was less than 10 feet from this animal, and I could hear it sniffing the air. It suddenly froze still when it picked up my scent. We were frozen in a noiseless standoff for at least 2 minutes. It couldn't see me, but it was looking for me because it knew I was very close. I knew this was something weird and my situation was not good, so, mostly hidden, I slowly and quietly, over the course of a minute or so, replaced my birdshot and my 12 gauge with 3-inch Magnum triple buckshot. When I raised my gun to ready to fire, it saw me. And when it did, I believe it thought I was closer than expected because the thing screamed like a wild hog being killed 10 times. Very, very hair-standing loud. It then suddenly leapt out of the water several feet, and about 12 or so feet into deeper water, about 8 or 10 feet deep. In that instant, when it jumped, I could see its back or something slightly above the brush. It had spiked hair. When it landed in the water, it sounded like a 300-pound animal splash. It remained underwater until it reached the other side of the slough. When it came out on land, I couldn't see it. I then made a huge circle around the animal to try to cut it off in an ambush. I wasn't really scared because even though it was God knows what, I knew it was scared as well. I snuck up less than 10 feet on this thing, and it had no clue I was there until it winded me. Beside, at that range, a 12 gauge with that load of shot is like being shot 10 times with an AR-15 in one spot. A 12 gauge load like that can put a hole the size of your fist through a wild hog. That's an animal that has one of the toughest hides in the planet. There's nothing on this earth that will survive very long with a ribcage shot from a load at that range. I knew this already, that's why I gave chase to the animal. Anyway, I tried ambushing with no luck. I wanted to continue hunting it, but all I had was a small pocket light. It was about 10 minutes before total darkness. Before I set out of the swamp, I looked and found its tracks. I found canine-like tracks about 4 to 5 inches wide and 6 to 7 inches long. They were bipedal tracks set about 6 feet apart due to the animal running. There's lots more to the story, but I'll leave it for now. I gathered enough info about this animal over the years, and I'm convinced that it can be hunted and killed. It walks on two legs and has canine-like feet, so whatever you want to call it that. I just know it exists, and I see it more like an animal than a monster. Today's fifth and final encounter of the night is a Goatman encounter. This happened a long time ago, and was one of the first encounters I've had. I was 9 years old, staying with my grandma on the reservation, a Native American Cree, and I was only supposed to be there for a day, but then it started to storm badly, lasting nearly 4 days. To this day, one of the worst storms we've ever had. The power was out for maybe 3 days, so no lights, no stove, nothing. The layout of my grandma's house is pretty important. I don't think you could even call it a house. It was more like a trailer house, the kind you see on Trailer Park Boys. It must have been the third night, because the day after we ate boiled eggs. My cousin, my aunt, and I were all sleeping in the living room, and from where I was sleeping, you could see through the kitchen window, which is pretty small, about 2 feet by 4 feet. I was awoken by the sound of something talking in a strange voice. At the time, I couldn't think of what it reminded me of, but now, after thinking about it for years, it sounded like a goat trying to speak English. I still don't know what it was trying to say, but I heard, "Hey, boys, hey." I just got the chills typing that. At first, I thought it was just my cousin being annoying, but then I noticed there was this big figure standing outside of the kitchen window. It had its fists against the glass. And then I noticed it was banging on the window. Not hard enough to make a ton of noise, though. I saw the outline of the horn, similar to a big horned goat. Fur covering its entire body from what I could see. And then fucking lightning flashed, and I saw its face. Very hard to describe, but it looked like what you'd imagine a Goatman to look like. Maybe a bit more on the goat side. Red eyes, but not glowing. It looked old and rough. Its fur was mostly gray with some brown. The window that it was at was about 6 feet above the ground, or more, I don't remember, plus the trailer burned down a few years back, so I would say it was about 7.5 feet tall. Although that night it stayed in place, but the banging turned into scratching, and attempts to speak turned into growls and shouting. Lightning flashed a few times more, and every time I could see the anger on its face growing more and more. I eventually woke up my cousin crying. She came and laid with me until I fell asleep. I had a hard time falling asleep because every time I closed my eyes, I would see those eyes looking back at me. And when I did finally fall asleep, I had a nightmare involving the Goatman. In my dream, I watched him walk over to our neighbor's house and brutally murder them, and come back with the decapitated head and swing it around in my face. He was taunting me. Why, I still don't know. What's really weird is that my cousin said she couldn't see it, but she could hear it, the growling, scratching, everything. We talk about it often. And I remember at one point moving to another room and looking outside of the window and seeing its full body, which was not like a minotaur, but a centaur. It noticed me, and that's when I ran back to the living room. Edit, I forgot to mention that morning after we checked outside for evidence. And we found huge hoof prints going from window to window and scratch marks on the window. The prints were probably the size of 2 open hands. Now, I've heard tons of other encounters, and none come close to that night. It was the most scary encounter I've ever had to this day, and I've had lots of things happen. I saw a Dogman, and when I asked a medicine woman about it, she said it was just passing by, and that it was angry because I was able to see it and it wasn't supposed to be seen. I shined a bright spotlight on it, and yup, it looked pretty damn mad. I feel crazy just thinking about it. Actually, typing this, I remembered something that happened around that time. Not to me, to somebody who lived on the reservation. He was a known pedo, and the night he got drunk and apparently saw a deer man. After that, they said he went crazy and killed himself. There has been reports of a Goatman terrorizing kids, but on different reservations. They describe it to be a minotaur-type figure. It's fucked up how there's things out there that we don't know exist. Boggles my mind, really. A few years ago, before my husband and I married, we had a friend who lived on the east side of town in a duplex with his girlfriend. They planned a cookout with us and some friends, and all of us were out buying goods and brews to take with us. On our way over to the house, my husband and I called to see if they were home yet, but they were also on their way at the same time. We arrived first and parked on the sidewalk area and noticed an empty parking space inside the duplex lot, and figured that it would be a spot for our friends would use, so we just left it empty for them. We sat in the car watching EDM clips and show footage while we waited, and about 4 minutes had passed before we saw headlights of a car coming our way. We saw the car pull into the duplex lot and take up the empty spot. It was our friend's make and model, same tan sedan he always drove. We saw the lights go off, and my boyfriend and I started to exit our car and opened the trunk to take out the beers and steaks and what we have and walked to the duplex and noticed that the empty parking space from before was actually still empty. It didn't make any sense because we started wondering why it would be empty after we had just seen our friend's car park in it. Backlights and all, yet here it was, empty. We stood there in the parking lot looking confused and wondering what the hell just happened and recalling how we both saw them parking. My husband even recalling his friend's face in the window besides his girlfriend. As we stood there looking like idiots, we set our goods down on the concrete and tried to make sense of things. We tried to convince ourselves it was just our imagination, but sometimes lying to ourselves only makes it worse. Then it gets weirder. The same car pulled up in the same path with the same make and model, and our friends were inside of it, just as before. They pulled into the empty space and turned the car off the same exact way and then got out of the same exact car and walked towards us to say that we had beat them to it. My husband and I were completely confused. How could the same thing happen twice in front of our eyes? All we could think is a big what the fuck, and we told them what we saw when we got into the house. They got creeped out as well, and we just decided to accept it was a glitch in the time and space. To this day, we have no other real explanation except for that one. Today's second glitch in the Matrix event. Everyone at some point eventually gets curious to sneak into cemeteries to try to spot shadows, ghosts, or, in my friend's case, try to get laid. Yeah, he was the guy who got into the cemetery with his girlfriend to smash behind a tombstone. This is his story I remember in detail. R.I.P. my friend Jesse. Hope you're smashing some hot spooks in the afterlife somewhere. He told me that he had a girlfriend who was kind of into the goth, morbid fetish lifestyle. And he was the daring type. He wasn't scared of anything, not even ghosts. We had seen plenty of them together at the law office we used to work at in the back of the building where it had been gutted, and all that remained was brick walls and empty doorways high up from the second and third floors. And I always the one to screech, Jesse just didn't care. And he would say something like, it's just some weak-ass demon or something. I'll just flash it my dick and make it go away. I would leave the back before I saw any of that. His girlfriend, on the other hand, loved seeing those things. He came back to the office one morning looking strung out, and he told me that he had been at the cemetery all night before with his girlfriend, and he smirked and said, we were smashing behind a tombstone and time froze. We literally stayed at 12:06 for like 2 hours. I thought he was bullshitting, but no, she later told me the same story, and she looked rather amused about it. Jesse isn't the only person who has experienced time loss or gain at this cemetery. Concordia Cemetery is one of the oldest and most haunted grave sites in the southwest of Texas,
And every single security guard has said that they've experienced time shifts, shadow sightings, and repetitive old Western gunfights by the famous buried icon, forgot the name of the gunslinger, and so much more. Concordia is really a spooky place, but if you ever want to try your luck at weird experiences, good luck sneaking in there at night. It gets pretty dark as well. I decided to go see for myself in my early college days. Go figure, college kids have nothing better to do. 3 of us jumped the wall and made sure to stay away from the security vehicle on the other side where the Jewish burial grounds were. We just did a walk around the old cemetery and goofed off under the trees. We tried taking photos of creepy-looking things to see if anything would come out. We even saw a trippy mist moving in the bottom part where the oldest tombstones were sinking into the ground. I remember looking at my phone at some point before seeing the mist, and it was a few minutes after midnight, like about 10 minutes or so. I ignored the phone time after that, and we went to the famous tombstone where if you leave a cigarette, supposedly the entity will try to smoke it and exhale. My buddy left a cigarette, and we stood around waiting to see if the ghost would start puffing it. After about 5 or 6 minutes, we saw the cigarette dying out, and we didn't see anything exciting, so we got bored and decided to leave. We saw a security vehicle driving closer to where we were, and we needed to leave. What happened was when I checked my phone right away to see if anyone had texted, the clock read 1:54. It went from 10 minutes after midnight to almost 2 a.m. in 5 to 6 minute period. Today's third glitch in the Matrix is actually mine. I've never written this down. I'm just going to go by memory. I've told a couple of friends about this, and they both think it's kind of strange. So it was the summer, and I want to say 94. I was on Mount Desert Island, and that's in Maine. Some of you may know that Mount Desert Island, there is the Somme Sound, which is the deepest sound in the East Coast. Also, it was a hot spot for scary stories during the time of the 1800s. Supposedly there was a witch of Somme Sound, and she would lure sailors into the rocky coast and crash their ships. There's a couple of other tales about this witch. I don't recall them offhand. So anyway, I'm coming from my family's home, and I'm going into town. So I'm coming from Bernard, Maine to Bar Harbor, and I'm going to hang out with some friends. We had planned on watching the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I was walking down this road, very quiet night, dark, very dark, and a couple of cars went by. It was about 10 o'clock at night, literally 10 o'clock. And all of a sudden, I remember seeing this bright light off in the distance on the road coming at me, almost like it was a car with their high beams on. And I remember this bright light coming closer and closer to me. The next thing I remember is showing up at my friend's house, and it was almost 2 o'clock in the morning. They had already watched the Rocky Horror Picture Show without me. I don't recall the walk. I don't recall anything. I don't remember the light passing me. I just remember that instance happening. I've talked to a few of my friends, like I stated, possible UFO. That made sense when I was younger, before I started learning about these time slips and these glitches. But now I think what happened was that I did have a glitch. Very small, very subtle, but that's 4 hours of my life that I can't recall. It freaks me out to this day. I don't get goosebumps, but it freaks me out because I don't remember anything after just seeing that bright light. And the weird thing is that I thought it was high beams because, if a regular car is coming at you, you see two lights. This was just like one solid bright light. So it was like the high beams kicking in and just projecting that light. I don't know. And I just figured that I'd share this with you guys. I had made mention of it 2 uploads back, and I felt that it fits, because I'm sure there's lots of us that have had these glitches with a time slip that we just blow off. I've blown this off for years. I've talked about it as like a weird thing, but because nothing happened, or I don't recall anything happening, it's not this huge event in my life. But it is, because I lost 4 hours of my life, and that's very strange. So enough with me. Let's get on with these flying humanoid cryptids around the O'Hare Airport. Today's first flying humanoid around the O'Hare International Airport. This report was recently from a man who said he was standing outside of a cargo dock at the O'Hare International Airport in Chicago when he spotted a 7-foot-tall person with wings just outside of the fence by the parking lot. The sighting reportedly took place at approximately 6:30 p.m. on November 26th. Here's the report. I was at the airport picking up a load at Nippon. I was already backed into the dock, and I was standing away from the truck smoking a cigarette while they loaded my truck. I was looking towards the runway in the direction of the tunnel, and that's when I noticed something that looked like a large bird standing just outside of the fence by the parking lot. It wasn't hard to miss because 2 street lamps were nearby. It looked like a person with wings that were stretched out, flapping. It was walking away from the fence towards the open field and then began to flap its wings and disappeared. The witness stated that the creature was about 7 feet tall, using the fence as a point of reference. When asked how he was able to be so certain about its height of this creature, the driver stated he has been to this location multiple times, and he estimates the fence to be about 8 feet tall. Using the fence, he was certain that the being was at least 7 feet. When asked how large the wings were, he said at least 6 feet across and black. He describes the entity as looking like a demon or a goblin. It was solid black. He states that he saw nothing that looked like eyes and assumed the creature might have had his back turned to him. He stated that it walked with a gait like a bird, and it was flapping its wings as it walked towards a large field that was by the runways and disappeared into the night. The witness also stated that when it disappeared, he quickly did the sign of the cross and asked the Virgin Mary for protection. He put out his cigarette and quickly walked back to his truck. When asked why he did that, he stated that he felt a presence that was evil and was so convinced that he had seen a demon. When asked if he had ever seen anything like that before, the witness states that he had before when he was a teenager back home in Mexico. He saw a solid black-winged creature that was circling an open field that he and other children were playing soccer in. He says that it circled the field and made a loud screeching noise before flying off into the surrounding forest. When asked if he remembered the date of that sighting, he said he doesn't remember the exact date, but a week later there was a large earthquake in Mexico City. For the record, a magnitude 8.0 earthquake that hit Mexico City was September 19th, 1985. There have been several other sightings reported in the same area, including October 30th sighting of a large winged humanoid in Park Ridge. On October 29th, a report of a winged humanoid accompanied by several other beings. On October 19th, a sighting of a giant-sized bat just outside of Edward Hotel in Rosemont. October 5th, sighting a tall creature with bright red eyes and large wings near Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. And the report from July of a 6-foot-tall creature flying over the Des Plaines River in Rosemont, Illinois. Here is the latest sighting of this red-eyed winged humanoid creature in O'Hare International Airport. This time it was sighted by a security officer. On the night of Tuesday, December 3rd, 2019, I was heading towards one of the airport cargo hubs. There are multiple hubs scattered throughout the airport. This particular one was the one located on the Express Center Drive, and it houses at least 6 cargo companies. As I was approaching the creek headed towards Montrose Ave, when I saw this large person standing down in the creek bed. I stopped, thinking it was maybe a trucker who decided to wander down there and relieve himself. I put on my lights and stopped my vehicle and was preparing to get out when this man turned towards me, and I saw 2 very bright red eyes. The thing appeared to be looking straight at me, and then it turned away and walked away. As it did, it unfurled a set of wings and began to flap them. It looked like a large goose when it wants to take off into the air. It took off into the air and then it was gone into the darkness. I was left there wondering what the hell had just happened and what I had seen. After I got home, I spent the next few days looking for similar sightings, and there's been many. I'm going to be blunt here. I don't believe in hobgoblins or little green men. I'm sure that there must be a rational explanation for this. I have a reputation for being grounded and level-headed. I've worked too hard to get where I am, and I am not going to have it trashed by saying I saw a red-eyed flying man. Yet, that is what I saw. This witness has worked as a security guard for the O'Hare Airport since 2003. Almost 16 years, and it most certainly would be career suicide if he reported this.
And there you have it, folks. I do hope you all enjoyed this early morning, middle of the night bonus. A lot of just strange things we talked about right there. Good stuff. Anyway, thank you for supporting the channel. It is your support, after all, that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened and are true. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.